Sorry, my hand was shaking only because I was trying to get my camera focused. But anyway, here we go. So I finished talking about Detroit Become Human. And fun fact, Ransom Riggs has a comic series of his Peculiar Children series. They're not that bad, actually. Sure, they're a little shortened, and they don't have as many, details about, the stuff from the original books. Let me say that right now. But other than that, they're pretty much the same as the actual books, unlike the Tim Burton movie. And no matter how many times anyone will come up to me and tell me that has read the books and seen the movie and will try and tell me that both of them are the same thing, they are lying to me. Moving on. Sorry, I still can't get over that. I'm probably gonna be traumatized about that movie for the rest of my life. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about that. I did promise to talk about that, but I recommend reading the comics if you uh, aren't a reader and you just like looking at pictures like I do. I mean, I do know I was in a huge anime manga phase for a whole long while. So, yeah, I mean, if you like reading comics or you like reading manga, go ahead and check this out because, you know, it doesn't have as many details or stuff as the original books do. But if you just like looking at pictures and, finishing a book in a day, because, like, some people do, give it a shot. And, other than that, it's mostly the same as the book, so not a whole lot of change. Unlike the Tim Burton movie, calm down, Petra. You can do this. You can do this. You can go through this video without freaking out over the Tim Burton movie. That awful abomination. What happened, Ransom Riggs? I heard that, like when he went through the movie deal. Tim Burton literally asked him, like, I'm gonna make these and these and these and these changes. And Ransom Riggs is like, okay. Because here's what happens. If you sign a contract and you want to change your mind and back out of it, you get sued. That's what happens. Probably one of the reasons why I don't want my book in the future to turn into a movie. And if it does turn into a movie, I'm gonna be in charge of that motherfucker. That's for damn sure. And it's like, look, man, I'm in charge of creative rights here, not you, me. I'm not having you do any of this crazy bullcrap insanity. There's time loops into a fucking photo booth in Tokyo, and then there's a time loop at a carnival in London. Time loops are supposed to be inconspicuous, where normal humans without peculiar abilities wouldn't even want to go anywhere near because it looks sketchy. Fuck you, Tim Burton. You're stupid. Anyway, that was a little piece of rant right there. But I'm going to be talking about A Map of Days. I already gave you my review post reading that book because I had just finished reading it, literally, and I just wanted to talk about what had happened in the book. Here's my feelings on it. It was better. It was, I thought Ransom Riggs was doing really good. Like, I will say these things, and it was kind of upsetting to see Jacob's family kind of disown him. But in hindsight, it did seem kind of realistic because Jacob's father really has it out for his own dad. Like, really has it out. And it's like, you chose your own father over your own family, and it's like, you guys are the same blood, okay? Just because you have different abilities, that but I know that he's trying to go across. It's like normals are bad, and peculiars are good. Which thankfully later on in the story, it doesn't actually say that all normals are bad. There is a silver lining in there somewhere. And Miss Peregrine was just a terrible person in this book. She really was. And it's one of those situations where the Peculiar Children series is kind of famous for, or, well, any book is famous for, where to amp up suspense, the character, the wise old leader, doesn't tell you the things you're supposed to know, and the kids kind of get a little rebellious and seek out their own way and their to get their own answers or to assert their own dominance, yada yada yada. Well, that's what happened. And guess what happened at the end of the book? Yeah, shit happened. Shit hit the fan type situation. And it turns out, well, the way peculiar stuff works in America is really different in Europe, mainly because America doesn't have Imbrines. I finally figured out how it's pronounced. That is, if the pronunciation Tim Burton movie is using it is proper. I'm just gonna go off of that on my own gut instinct for now, because I've been calling it Imbrines this entire time, and now I have to call them Imbrines. So here's that. But America doesn't have any Imbrines. Why? Because they've been hunted down to extinction. But they're still running loops. How? Because there's still some people out there with a peculiarity ability to keep those loops running somehow. They're called demi-imbrines. So they don't turn into birds, and they can't make loops, but they can keep the loops, from disappearing. So there's that. But there's also kind of like this mafia system going on, where there's like these three groups of governments that you have to follow these strict set of laws, even if you're unaware of them or not. Like, apparently, convincing a girl in a town to go to a time loop she could be safe in, even though she's already in a town she wasn't aware already had peculiars and whatnot, is considered kidnapping, even though she was consensual in it. And another thing, trespassing into someone's loop is considered illegal, even if you didn't know you broke into someone's loop. So yeah, even if you don't know you're breaking the law, you're gonna be in big trouble. So it's kind of like I'm kind of comparing it to the mafia system, or kind of comparing it to No Country for Old Men type system, because some of these people kind of sound like Antoine Chigurh. You know what I'm saying? It's like you just don't want to mess with this guy, but he's got a code, that only he understands. And it's like, even if you kind of like mess up in some way, he doesn't care. You messed up somehow, so you're as good as dead. And basically, there's also like these types of peculiars that kind of like in Devil's Acre in the last book, where there's a peculiars that could like kidnap children and use them to entertain people against their will. There's a peculiars that can like do the same thing, and it's kind of scary because there's some peculiars that are kind of lawless. Apparently, there's like three areas. One in the Northeast, one in Detroit, and one in California, stationed in Los Angeles, that have these laws. And basically, the Imbrines are trying to get these three groups of governments of peculiars to get along, considering that they don't have their own Imbrines, so they're kind of relying off of their own judgment. And a fun fact, considering that I'm from Arizona, it's said that Texas and the South are kind of like the Wild West of peculiardom. And I'm like, oh. Because they kind of are lawless and they don't have, they're kind of like doing whatever, you know? So, yeah, there's that. And basically, the book was basically, not only was it talking about um, Jacob's grandfather. Well, there was a funny part where basically it was like the kids, agreeing to, you know, mature. They don't want to be kids anymore. They kind of want to do stuff. They want to help out, with the Imbrines and the other peculiars, and be a service to their people. So they decided to, go to this place, see if they can get a job, that would suit their abilities and their interests. They got a job that would suit their abilities, but not their interests. So, and the first movie of Captain America, where even though Steve Rogers got the super soldier serum and he got buffed up, and he really wanted to go to Germany and fight Hydra and Nazis, to defend his country and whatnot. Well, here's the thing. In the first movie, he ended up being like some sort of uh, advertisement. Selling war bonds and stuff. Kind of like this guy. Like it was kind of embarrassing for him. Probably the low part of his career. And considering all the stuff that happened with Jacob after, defeating Cal and essentially Whites and Hollows in general, he was like thinking, yeah, is there something important I can do? And basically, Miss Peregrine's like, yeah, we want you to be the face to encourage other people that, basically, they want him to be a spokesman. And he's like, what? And it's kind of like that because many of the kids and the characters are like, we spent this amount of time, like, risking our lives to rescue the Imbrines, to defeat Hollows, to kill the Whites, to defeat Cal, and to lock him up in a loop that probably imploded in on itself. And you want us to have these mediocre jobs that we don't even want? And they're like, yeah. Any questions? Yeah. And they weren't really happy about it. They didn't like it. And that may have been one of the reasons why they, disobeyed Miss Peregrine and went out on their own. Another one of those reasons for their teenage rebellion was because, their time clock had been reset. So they weren't, children anymore. They were kind of growing up now. The longer they stayed in Jacob's timeline, which was, the present, ever continuing forward. I feel like I just quoted Beatrice's dad. Oh my god, I feel dirty saying that. If you ever watch BoJack Horseman, I recommend giving it a shot. I'm not going to talk about that show because that's depressing enough as it is. But moving on. They're slowly becoming teenagers. Like, there's even a scene where, like, some of the boys are making kind of like comical jokes about their body parts that the girls were kind of uncomfortable with, uh, and so on. And it was just like, yeah, I mean, this is kind of like, stuff that, guys do and whatnot. And I know I said that to, backing track to Miss Peregrine being a really crappy character in this book, because typically she's, supposed to be described as this motherly figure that would do anything for people and take care of them and look after them and whatnot. Well, there was like this part where Jacob wanted to, come out and tell his parents, I'm peculiar. And, Miss Peregrine, she, from her own personal experience, had a really crappy time after she told her parents that she was peculiar. And, Jacob, basically wanted to have a normal life with his parents, like any other person should and could and possibly would if they come out and tell their parents they're different. And he didn't get that. It didn't. It went horribly. In fact, his parents had to get their memories erased because of it, because they couldn't handle the information that well, or at all. And Miss Peregrine's like, actually, I do believe it would be a good idea for Mr. Portman, if he feels, to go ahead and tell your parents and welcome, us and yourself with them into their peculiar lives. And then, after, all of that happened, she went and told Jacob, yeah, I had a similar moment with that myself, where my parents blamed me for every horrible thing that happened to them, and they were homeless and poor and broke and yada yada yada. And Jacob's like, and you're telling me this now? Well, yeah, and there's like a handful of other things where the teenagers are like starting to feel like maybe she's a little too stifling on them, And it's like, yeah, I mean, when you're a teenager and you're growing up, and for them, they were actually growing up. They weren't frozen in time back in 1940s anymore. So they kind of like were starting to think, yeah, maybe we could do our own things. I mean, remember that time when we traveled from, Cairnholm Island all the way to London, and we got to do all these crazy stuff, and then we got to, do this stuff at the Library of Souls? Man, we can do this stuff on our own. Why do we need Miss Peregrine? And it got turned up on side its head. But here's a fun little thing, because apparently uh, we get to learn a little bit about Abraham Portman. And Abraham Portman is Jacob's father. And this is pretty much when they decided to go out on their little cross-country road trip. And this is the part I'm going to be focusing in on, because one, this is a part of the thing that's really amusing. And two, it's part of the thing that's really fascinating writing-wise and character development-wise. I will say this, as far as characters go that were trapped in the 1940s and, going up into 2018 and being exposed to stuff like sliding doors, traffic, uh, fast food drive-thrus, security cameras and security alarms when you shoplift stuff. There was a huge series of reactions that were very amusing and very funny that I appreciate wholeheartedly, and I love Ransom Riggs for putting all of these bizarre reactions in. Also, it was kind of amusing to see Horace react negatively to finding out that jeans were a fashion trait in modern day anywhere. Yeah, he actually refused to wear jeans because apparently he's like, those are farmer boy clothes. Horace, I'm sorry to say, but jeans are actually kind of fashionable nowadays. Everyone wears jeans. I have jeans. I actually have a pair of jeans in my dresser right now. But yeah, and Horace, if you know him, he's like the type of guy that would go up to a tailor and get like the snappiest tuxedo for his 12-year-old body, and to find out that teenagers nowadays, wear t-shirts and jeans and hoodies and sneakers and stuff. He's just kind of like his mind is imploding with this information. And there was a whole lot of other things. Like they find out that like teenagers have cell phones, which pretty much everyone has. And they're like, does that mean that they're rich? No, I think their parents gave that to them. Uh, do they have jobs? I'm pretty sure they have summer jobs. And there was like a good few little nuggets here and there when it came to Enoch really likes cars. Old fashioned muscle cars, I mean. I don't even know if he knows anything about like modern day muscle cars. He probably thinks they're stupid. I wonder what his opinion on Fast and Furious would be like. Oh, and there's a moment where the kids were watching TV and apparently they hated it. Like, they really did not like watching TV. Go figure. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm kind of disinterested in TV nowadays. I'm more drawn to my phone. God, I wonder how they would feel about cell phones nowadays now that they know that, people use the internet more than TV. Huh. Anyway, back to Jacob Portman. I had to go on a little tangent about the kids freaking out about modern day technology, and it was funny. Basically, here's the dealio with the kids slowly discovering more and more about Abe. Well, they go over to Abe's house to go ahead and pay their respects after he died, and they find that apparently that Abe has a secret war bunker underneath his house, and Jacob has and apparently Abe has like this whole binder full of catalogs from missions that he went on, and he goes and takes it and flips through it and learns a few things about his grandpa, like missions that he went on and stuff he did, and apparently there's a guy that his grandpa was familiar with, a dude named H, and a few other things like a phone number and shit like that. That he got in contact with when he went back to Devil's Acre and kind of hustled the information out of a guy that was saved by H and Abe Portman. Ranger, no. So basically, he goes and calls H up, and H is like, "All right, go ahead and meet me at the diner that you and your grandfather made up at, and be alone." Jacob, of course, goes there with Emma, and they order some food, and they get ambushed in the ice room, which is if you work at a restaurant, there's an ice room with a bunch of frozen foods and with a hollow in there.
And the Hollow starts, fucking shit up with them, and they escape. By that point, there's already a few customers in there. Yeah, there's my kitty. Hello. And the customers managed to get the Has out of there. And of course, Jacob's about ready to kill the Hollow, and apparently, H tells him, that's enough. Apparently, it was a test. It was basically his version of an interview, and basically the whole point was to see if Jacob, could see the Hollow and could communicate with the Hollow and even control it. And apparently the Hollow is actually like a big old tame puppy dog named Horatio. Oh, figure. Huh. And basically he goes in there, hands him, like a couple of packages and, tells him, to go ahead and turn this in over at this place and turn this in over at this place. And that's basically the start of their first quote unquote missions. The real mission has to be like rescuing this peculiar girl who's in trouble. But first, Emma and Jacob decide to go and talk to the other kids and about what they're planning on doing and see if they're into it. Of course, some of them are into the idea, except for Horace, who's nervous, and Claire, who is, a mama's girl for Miss Peregrine, is opposed to it, and even, wants to, tell on everyone about their idea. And Hugh, who is still hung up on his girlfriend being missing, but not dead, missing. Like, if you say the D word to him, he's gonna be depressed or angry at you. And Bronwyn was initially against the idea, but she changed her mind randomly, like literally. It just like literally said that she was opposed to the whole thing the entire time, and then there's literally a sentence, and then she changed her mind. All right, I'm doing it. And I was like, okay, but yeah, and that's gonna be the end of this video because it's taking too long. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this here. I'll talk again about the map of days thing tomorrow. And as always, guys, keep reading. And when it comes to books being adapted into movies, only read the books. Only read the books. Bye.